Hi, hello, and welcome to another video on this channel. It's me, your reader, I guess. Um, so I don't know what I'm doing today. Like most days on this channel, the 6 weeks are up. I rewatched the video. August 21st was 6 weeks from 6 weeks ago. Uh, And it's also Virgo season now. I got a notification and I checked Time Nomad. And when I checked maybe an hour or 2 hours ago, the sun was 0 degrees and some minutes Virgo. Also, I was watching back through videos to find the one, and there was one of them that was just like, chair squeak, squeak, squeak. I'm just like, wow, I need some like noise cancellation or something. I need to find actually. See, I don't even know where I would put my podcasting mic. And I know I got another mic. I needed to get a battery for that one. It's all in storage. Anyway. Yeah, so I kind of wanted to pull something maybe. Not necessarily, like I would love to pull something for Virgo season, but I don't think I'm gonna do it tonight. And then I was gonna pull before and after that second night of Pentacles. But the deck is like all the way over there, and I don't know if that necessarily feels like the move. That you could barely tell that I just turned off that light. But it might make things a little cooler in here. Anyway, maybe this is the vibe tonight. I did have a feeling to go for the Places Oracle, but I don't know if I necessarily want to do that either. I feel like usually by this point I would have an inkling. Maybe one of these days I'll just like go live and close my eyes and just like be, and we could be together, share space. You know what I mean? Forced exhale. Mm, actually, there was something that I wanted to do. There was something I had an idea to do. So I have a bunch of the latest batch of booster cards. I haven't yet aggregated them into a place where I put them together. I had a feeling, and maybe the timing aligns or is right, to look before and after the classroom and the Places Oracle, and to also look at that one card in whichever booster pack. It had to be Secrets of Strixhaven, where there was like the test or whatever, right? And so now might be the perfect time to do it. Why not? I forget what I actually ended up doing instead. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. It has been slam pickings for Magic cards. I don't even know what's out right now. I don't know. Somebody got to be buying them up because it ain't none. Oh, I know it's not in this booster pack, so I don't really have to look through these. I think I saw something besides the Marvel superheroes. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I could have did that more Stephanie. Just tossing it. Oracle's restoration. That brings Visionary's dance. Banishing betrayal. That brings something in mind. What was it? Oracle's restoration. I already lost it. I think it was the mystical shaman. Was it the mystical shaman? I don't know. Who knows? This one is empty. I forgot I got so many Secrets of Strixhaven booster packs. Proctor's Gaze. Only proctors are allowed to use magic in exam halls, enabling them to more easily catch cheaters in the act. That's the card. Proctor's Gaze. Let's see. There you go. That brings the Dungeons and Dragons tarot to mind. I feel like there's it may be on the Magician where you see like that thing. It's also in another deck that literally just escapes me. I feel like it's in one of those Cyril Machete decks, but it's different. It's also bringing the Dreams of Gaia tarot to mind. I think that's the deck that came to mind with Oracle's Restoration. It was something in the Dreams of Gaia tarot. It's like gone. What is happening tonight? I feel like as soon as I have the thought, if I don't immediately communicate it, it is gone. Ruinous Rampage. All right, there's like a healthy deck, right? I did flip the card. I think, well, there are different proctors too. I mean, I guess the proctors, this could be an energy kind of related to, well, it was in one of these booster packs, right? The Dragon Cat Dirt, the Pet Avengers, that's what it was. With the proctors, the energy of that leopard from the Orisha Tarot, the energy of like the lion and the big cats that really preceded, and the owls and the wolf. A lot of those energies preceded the Pet Avengers. The only like really new additions were kind of dragons and also the frog. So we'll just keep going and see what's up. I should have opened a window or something. Can you see that sweat beating on my forehead? It's still so warm. So very warm. The office and the playground. Area of productivity goals to be achieved. Imagination's landscape, boundless fun. Who says that? What's that? When you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. Was it don't work at a job your work, or something like that? What did she say? Which I feel like can be a little complicated because sometimes, like if you turn a hobby into a career, it can, not necessarily always, but it can like take the joy out of it a little bit. You know what I mean? Some things for some people. Between the beach and the vineyard was the classroom, where land and sea meet, endless horizons, sun-kissed vines, growth and cultivation. Where land and sea meet, growth and cultivation. Where land and sea meet is giving the energy of a bridge, and bridges have been not necessarily coming out, but the energy of bridges came up, I'm pretty sure, last time. And then we saw like, or the time before last, and then there was like a heaven earth bridge type energy. Um, but the growth and cultivation of the vineyard, it's almost like there's a tower or a spire that's built upon a bridge. Or it's just something that grows to the size to occupy, to touch multiple domains. When I say multiple domains, I'm not exactly sure what it means, but eminent domain is what came to my mind. Ooh, the classroom almost flipped back over. Wow. It's almost like it did, like it flipped over and then it flipped back over. I'm like, you're my significator. You can't go dark. Hello. I feel like that's almost an energy of like the test is almost never what we think it is. I don't want to say almost. The test can be something that we don't think that it is, right? Like if the test is, it's almost like the test is to do something simple. It's like the assignment is to do something simple, but what we're tested on is like our approach, right? Like the test, like you're not testing for completion, you're testing for something else. Or you're not testing for correctness, you're testing for something else. And I guess like in Naruto, you had the tuning exams where it was kind of like who can cheat without getting caught because they're all ninjas, right? So that was part of it. Maybe a part of it was also like who has the determination to like not quit when they kept increasing the stakes or whatever. And there was someone who passed the test that didn't answer a single question because that's not what the test was for. They weren't testing correctness. Am I just gonna run with these two? Am I gonna grab another one? Oh, we have proctors. Since I'm doing this new significator system where I flip the significator upright so I can immediately find it rather than having to like rifle through the deck. Um, and there are token cards in the Magic the Gathering cards. And technically, since there's a face, I'm going to look at it, even though they're not the significator. But in Proctor's gaze, there are proctors for the exam, right? I feel like this may be one of those. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Well, I feel like I should breathe again. I should just like close my eyes, breathe really, 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 really deep. And then just go to sleep. Cool. Okay. Because we have proctors for the exam, I kind of want to start with the classroom first, and then we'll go from there. classroom is towards the bottom of the deck. The bottom of the deck. So you could say there are a few ways to do a lot of things. The top of the deck is more conscious, the bottom of the deck is more subconscious, or the top of the deck is more like immediate and concrete. The bottom of the deck is more removed, abstract, subtle, or whatever, right? And so because it's like so close to the bottom of the deck, I feel like it does kind of give credence to that whole like the assignment and the test are kind of like two different things, which is interesting because recently I feel like I was like talking about the whole like, I don't know, something about the times have kind of felt personal in a way that I don't feel that I could give any like illumination necessarily into or on. Besides, like, this is the vibe and this is what it feels like. And then I was doing some reading anyway. And I feel like there was a card I was like, well, let's shuffle up and see if anything flips over or falls. And it was that whole, like, it would defeat the purpose of the assignment if I were to do whatever. And in the moment, it was like, okay, so like that not trivializes the thing, but it puts it into perspective. There's something that's not necessarily a test or an exam, it's just an assignment. And assignments are graded, but they're not necessarily graded on like the same playing field as an exam or a test. But if you are like riding the cusp, that can sort of determine which side one falls on. Anyway, that's beyond the point. Also, strangely, like today, yeah, today, there's been this energy of like beyond. Like I was talking to my buddy and I was telling him about D&D Beyond. And then I was watching something. I think it was a trailer for Lord of Mysteries gameplay. And I'm pretty sure like they're called Beyonders. And it was only 2 times, but I'm like, interesting. Within the span of whatever. Cool. Anyway. All right. 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 The bottom place is the restaurant. Chef's culinary delights, savor each bite. You get what you order. You get what you order if you can afford it. Sometimes you get what you order and you can't afford it, but you get it and then it's like you eat first and you pay later. You get what you order. You get what you order, not what you want, unless what you order is what you want, not what you need, unless what you need is what you order. And depending on the establishment, you may not get either if you can't afford it. And it could be one of those energies, or it could be one of those vibes of like a restaurant that has had to like change the way that it operates, right? Maybe they get like a lot of dine and dashers. They get a lot of people that order the food and they don't pay for it. And so now they've changed the ordering of the process. So you pay first and then you get your meal. Or like you have to provide proof of intent and ability to pay. and then you get your meal. Interesting. The top place is the gas station. Essential pit stop, take a break, and refuel. This is like, there's like restaurant food, and then there's like gas station food. Under the gas station is the spiritual realm, dimensions of the divine, cosmic energy unveiled. It's so interesting to see the spiritual realm, literally the second card from the top. The rooftop skyline views, peace above chaos, is the card before the restaurant. So there's a rooftop restaurant. If we needed any more about like the grandeur or the scale of this restaurant, it's a rooftop restaurant. Also, like rooftop spiritual realm. I think this is quite interesting. I feel like that also kind of explains why the order of operations has changed. I feel like in a certain way it wouldn't be surprising, but in another breath, it is potentially alarming or potentially comforting. Almost like there's a level of scrutiny that's being applied to certain things because, like, the spiritual realm is surging or swelling or coming more to the forefront. And it's a lot easier to lie to people than it is, right? Especially with that energy of like you have to pay first or provide intent to pay and ability to pay for what you're ordering. Because that it's I don't know. Let's just continue. Let's just continue, shall we? And I feel like it would be Virgo season. Virgo season would be the like, okay, it's time to like tighten up ship, clean things up. So first we have a proctor, and the proctor is the fractal. I didn't look. That's pretty close to the top of the deck. Then we have, that's fine, the Kirill, the history buff, in reverse with the rehearsed debater upright. You see how I changed the rules and then immediately get cards I wasn't even asking that I didn't even know I would be pulling. I thought it would just be fractals. They must have flipped over when I was shuffling. Is that the energy of like proctors? Or is that the energy of like people who got caught cheating? AKA the reason why policies have changed. Reason why. The next proctor is the pest. It could have been another fractal, but instead of a second fractal, we get a pest. Now, as an aside, this pest, when it first came up, I'm pretty sure this is the pest that was the pest to like the poison dealer or whatever. It was like, and I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you pesky meddling kids. And I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling kids Already forgetting Scooby-Doo. Next, we have the Proctor's Gaze. When I say Proctor's Gaze, Proctor's G, my mind said Proctor's Gamble, not Procter and Gamble, but like Proctor's Gamble. Another Proctor we have is the robot. It's been a while since we've seen this guy, but I feel like he was like waiting at some place for someone to return and then they did or something. And then one more Proctor, and it's the Moloid. Robots and Moloids. Should I feel like every now and then I sort of have this conflict of like, does this card reference the energy that it came out in a previous time, or is it appearing in a completely new energy? Because immediately the Moloid almost feels like an infiltrator. Whereas again, the robot feels like something that's been like stationed at a place for a long time. Like the robot is kind of like ancient tech. It's an artifact. But this Moloid is like modern tech. And I guess it doesn't say that it's like a robot. Maybe it's the face. It's like banded, almost like a helmet would be. I feel like this is the warmest I've been in a while. I thought I was going to have 2 or 3 Proctors. So there's the energy of the fractal. There's the energy of the past. On the other side of the past, I think that's the only card where I looked at what's on the other side of the token, because tokens are double-faced cards. On the other side of the past is another fractal. Instead of 2 fractals, there's a fractal in the past. But again, I'm pretty sure in the context of the first time this past came out, it was a past to like devil energies or whatever. So it's almost like in this context and in this situation, the pest would be the one to reveal the Moloid as an infiltrator. And maybe revealing the Moloid as an infiltrator is what gets this energy kind of sort of caught up over here. The rehearsed debater upright with the history buff in reverse. I feel like the rehearsed debater upright, history buff in reverse, and this whole plot, plan, and scheme almost carries a little bit of those who don't learn from their history are doomed to repeat it type energy. And I feel like also with the Moloid, there is like an assumption that anything that was accomplished in the past because of technological advances and so on and so forth, like with technology as it is today, you could easily trick, fool, or out maneuver an ancient or antiquated or previous sort of like system or whatever. Which may be helpful, useful, and beneficial if the assignment was the test. Right. Because there was that energy of like, it's not testing for correctness. So cheating to get the right answers doesn't even necessarily help. Ooh, girl. As an aside or whatever. So in the real Karukian mythos, especially when it comes to the Angelarium, there's a whole what's his name? Barakiel, the angel of like lightning, and then Zatario, the angel of deceit. I feel like with this like rehearse for some reason, this rehearsed debater is giving me the energy of that Zatario angel of deceit. And it's like in real Karukian mythos, aka as the energy, as like the narrative bubble that has come out around the energy previously. Sotario fell. Everybody thought it was a whatever, but it wasn't. After two angels fell, that's when Armros was like, "Oh no, girl, I don't know what Azazel been teaching these folks about weapons and whatnot, but we didn't think they'd turn them on us. Oh, we got a GTFO. Put down the veil. They're on their own." But for some reason now it's like that was like a deception. It was like a double deception. And it's like, well, it's Satario. Like, why are you surprised that the person that was like an illusionist, a magician, a master of making you see what it wants you to see, like, why is it a shock that they're not really dead or they were behind it all along? I feel like this almost goes like way off the whatever, but we'll just keep it going and then we'll come back to this. Where's like my fan? I think it's like way over there. It's fine. I'll just sweat. Um, so it's almost like maybe she's giving like if this were a movie, then the plot would be something like Satario had known how close Armoros was to like maybe after the first one, they were like, okay, we need to pull away. But maybe like, they were like, it maybe it's not what we thought, blah 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 blah, whatever. And maybe Satario had ambitions of like power, greater presence, worship, whatever. And so Satario faked his death very realistically. The veil went down. So now there's a distance between like the rest of the heavenly hosts or the rest of the angels and the people on earth. But it's like Satario wasn't really dead. So it's almost like Satario stayed behind to kind of like rule the humans or be worshipped as like a singular entity rather than one of a host of like at the very least equally powerful entities. You know what I mean? So like engineered a situation to be the only one and then like ran wild with it type energy. And then in that case, the history buff in reverse would be like, that's the part they don't write in the history books. Because the angel of deception is still in power or still has influence. So they're not going to write truth in history books. Anyway, again, that's kind of an aside. I literally just realized we have so many cards on the table. I feel like I didn't necessarily need to pull before and after every single one of these. If you know what I mean. Because I feel like just seeing these cards, there's already whatever. So, okay. So to further that along, on that Sutarial thread, the fractal that we see Like there's a bridge between this fractal and this pest, right? Maybe, and there's like two ways I can see this playing out. Way number one, someone realized the deception that Satario was up to. Now, in the Angelarium, whatever, if I had to pick one of those, it would be Chazakiel. I probably butchered it. I am so sorry, but I did my best. I'm going to do my best. Okay? That's all I can do. The Angel of the Mists, who was like the only one that didn't go back. They were like stuck in between. They ended up getting stuck in between because they didn't go back before the veil came down. Maybe. So that's why I'm like, if there was one that I had to assign to this, Chazakia would be like the closest fit. I think that's the Angel of the Mist. I'll just say the Angel of the Mist would be the closest fit because they didn't go beyond the veil. They got stuck between two places. So that's the first. One of them had caught on to Satario's plans, but didn't have enough proof or enough presence or enough of a voice, enough sway, enough dominion or power, or however the hierarchy falls. They didn't have enough to temper the reaction to the deception that played out in front of their eyes. I'm sure they have some kind of way of perceiving the world, their eyes. And so the Angel of the Mist remained as this like secret. Satario didn't even know. You got the Angel of Deception and the Angel of the Mists as this, whatever. And this pest is connected to that angel. Either that, like that's the first way. Somebody sort of like was on the trail before the deception happened and the veil went down. The second one is like the veil went down and then they realized the betrayal. And so now they have to like connect to a vessel that they could work with and work through to try to, correct the situation. Either way, the fractal and the pest are connected. On the other side of that pest is a fractal. And depending on the nature of the entity, energy, being, person, if we were to like take it from up here to like down here, it could be like someone with enough pull, enough authority within an, like if there is someone that is manipulating an organization to increase, not like to increase profitability overall, but like for them to really stack dollars, but it's like hurting the organization, but like the board doesn't see it. And so it's like it has to be someone with enough repute. Is that the word? It's almost like reputable. I think it's something like that. That's some conjugation of reputable. Someone of repute. Yeah, someone of repute. Repute is a word. Um, for the board to actually like heed what they're saying. Like if it's somebody at the bottom, then it could be easy to like write it off as discontent or whatever. But it has to be with someone. It has to be someone with enough of a voice to actually get the board to listen, to highlight, spotlight this whole scheme, right? So if we're taking this up here to like down here, or if it's like even taking it almost a little bit further, like this could be a dynamic between peoples. Like someone comes into a dynamic and they play the good whatever, and they convince someone to like be taken advantage of, and there's like people that tell that person like, oh, this person or organization is taking advantage of you, they don't really care about you, they're just using you, and like they don't listen. And then maybe they go to somebody or someone like the person that they trust like more than anybody. They either go to that person or that person like peeps it and then speaks up. And then that's I mean, I haven't flipped any of these cards, so in real life it can play out in any kind of way. So even if it reads one way on the table doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to play out that way for like everybody who may potentially see this. But at the very least, it feels like it causes a debate within a person of like, okay, like, is that other person right? Is there some kind of like deception going on here? Or are they mistaken? Now, with the cards that came out and the way they came out, it reads like there's some kind of deception and illusion going on here. And even if people were to clock it, or even if some people were to clock it, it's almost like they don't necessarily have enough pull to actually do something about it. But with the fractal in the past, there's like something's being done about it. So the robot feels neutral, and this moloid is some kind of puppet or instrument and tool of that rehearsed debater, Satario, deception type energy. It feels like the robot is almost like the system itself, or like the venue, or like a new party, right? Like if you're taking a Scantron exam or whatever, like the robot is the Scantron forms and whatever the Scantron reading program or software is. I mean, I feel like if you have a lot of Scantrons, then you probably like, I don't know, you could still do it by hand. It's just Scantron. Maybe it's just the paper. It's the paper that the test is printed on. It's the venue that it takes place in. It's the desks. It's like all of the non-person or the non-personable elements. Right? And I say non-personable because it feels like there can even be some proctors that are just like neutral sort of stand-ins that aren't necessarily connected to the school or whatever. Almost like if there is a venue that has like a security team or whatever, or if there's a venue that has like their own landscaping crew or whatever, like you don't have to hire landscapers or you don't have to hire security for the event because they have people like on staff or on retainer. If you want to hire extra, you can, or if you want to hire your own and like not use what's sort of provided, you can. But and I wouldn't call those non-persons, but I would say non-personable in a way of like they don't necessarily act on behalf of either of these. They're like neutral and they come with the territory. Interesting. Kind of how this played out then, I guess. Because on one side we have a fractal, on the other side we have that Satarial energy, and then the I don't necessarily want to say avatar, the symbolic individual that the fractal works through is the past, and the symbolic individual that Satarial energy works through is the moloid. Cool. Yeah, this is truly one of those. I'm like, I don't even have an iced coffee or alcohol. See, I was gonna go to Dunkin' and get a drink to do an ICC for Virgo season. I was in Meyer and I was gonna get some alcohol to do like a OJL. I didn't do either. I don't know. I didn't feel like Dunkin' today, and they didn't have an alcohol that I wanted. They don't do the hard Mountain Dews anymore. It took me so long to finally try like the Code Red or the Baja Blast hard Mountain Dew. At first, I was like, ugh. I got to drink them for I feel like not even a full year, and they're not even on the shelves anymore. It's fine. I don't need it. It's not like it's good for me or whatever. I was just like looking at other stuff. I was like, I don't want to drink none of this. Someone has returned. Anyway. Yeah, okay, cool. You know what's also interesting though? With this fractal and past energy where we have this rehearsed debater and moloid, the spiritual realm was like the second card from the top of the deck. So again, it is kind of giving that like I'm glad I'm not in the back of the house. Yeah, yeah. Maybe this is it. Maybe instead of trying to follow another storyline, this is just the one we go to. And we can compress it and compact it and densify it as we need. This is the whatever. Oh, I can kind of like waving my arms around. I feel the displaced air moving across my sweaty forehead. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Where do I start? I still feel like this is a lot of cards low key. It's fine. All right, let's start with the classroom. The classroom is in between the bedroom and the theater. Bedroom, cozy refuge, dreams and comfort. Theater, venue of storytelling. Let the story unfold. Maybe that let the story unfold is just a confirmation to keep it going. I feel like bedroom theater. Is that like a euphemism for something? Like there's pillow talk and the bedroom theater. I feel like that's an actual like phrase or something. It could not be, but okay. Or maybe it's not. No. It's just yeah, you can turn your bedroom into a theater by using a projector or whatever. Cool. Okay. Also though, with the dreams and comfort and the let the story unfold, it feels like there is like a, especially for like spiritual realm is drawing near type energy. Like dreams could be a way that certain things are communicated because the mind is in a state where not that it's like open and pliable, but where it's not as bound to like reality and necessarily our preconceptions. Like something can happen in a dream and we feel the same way about it in the dream as we would in real life. But sometimes we can be a little bit more like, I mean, I feel like, is it like, it's fine. So then next, let's look at the proctor. On one side of the proctor, we have essence scatter. Venturing beyond, there's that beyond again. Venturing beyond campus means learning how to deal with creatures not bound by university rules. Emil, the Vastlands roamer. And then we have Arnim Zola, a biofanatic. You are not the only one who found a way to live across the ages, Captain America. Oh, and here's the Proctor's gaze. I mean, I feel like there is another sort of layer to this that's not necessarily so overtly antagonistic, and that Disney question marks the school for good and evil type of way. Whereas, like, you got your good, you got your neutrals, and you got your not so greats, and like everybody learns. Everyone becomes proficient in their skill, their craft, what they do. Right. I feel like low key with Arnim Zola, that's almost one of those times where it comes out in an energy that's different than the one it originally came out in. Because, again, it read like Sartorial has been this dominant force after it like faked its own death, knowing that it would provoke some kind of huge reaction, to mean like there's nothing that can challenge it, because everything that was capable of challenging it distanced itself in that response to what had happened in a way that where they can't necessarily like directly interact and engage in a way where they could when there was no veil. And so this Arnim Zola would actually be this pest, the thorn and that sartorial energy side. It also remained on this side of the veil, and it's also still been here. Like Satario, the angel of deception, is not the only energy that survived through the ages. Right. So if you check your history books in terms of like all of the tragedies and travesties and catastrophes that have happened, both sort of natural and man-made, more so man-made, but there's also been like hope and arts and creativity and like other things that have been happening at the same time. You know what I mean? Type energy almost. That essence scatter is interesting though. I feel like venturing beyond campus means learning how to deal with creatures not bound by university rules. Girl, if this ain't the plot to some kind of give me another 2 hours, I can tell you exactly what anime this is. What anime, what book, what movie, what video game I've played, read, or watched. I did say there was like a did I say mystical shaman? Because that there's almost like this combined energy between ghost dance and soul retrieval. For the one or ones that didn't remain, it feels like that essence scatter is the hopes and dreams of those energies that people align to and become vessels for, right? Also, at the same time, not all of them are necessarily great. I mean, not that. Also, at the same time, there are forces that exist that are invested in keeping things as they are and as they have been. You know what I mean? It's not like whoever's making this play is the only, like, they've got a whole. Come on, I'm trying to think of a different word besides cabinet. A whole cohort. They have a whole cohort of like people that are like in on it or whatever, who also stand to benefit. And they're also going to be interested in sort of keeping things as they are. And again, like the energy of the angel of deception is here. So, with the angel of deception here, I wouldn't be surprised if there are people who are deceived into like, like they think they're doing the right thing or they think they're doing whatever, but they're actually like not. They've been deceived and they've been taken advantage of. They've been bamboozled. And then when the deception is revealed, they realize it. Or not. I feel like this, I don't know where this was going to go. Cool. Where do we go next? Let's go around the robot next as this kind of neutral feeling energy. On one side, we have the exalted sunborn. On the other side, we have PIM Technologies. PIM Technologies. These ants are the best lab assistants I've ever had. No offense, Bill. Not ants, girl. I mean, like, what else makes the point? Hello. I've never seen the movie or read the comics. Um, I was literally watching. What was it? I got an ad. Return of the Alpha King something, and there are these like beyond sacred beings. There's like it's a werewolves versus vampires type story, but it's mostly focused on the werewolves. There was this werewolf who couldn't shift, and apparently they called him like a wolfless mutt, and they kicked him out. They banished him because he couldn't shift, and his mom was like, "He's not a wolfless mutt." He was taken in. He has by these three individuals who are again beyond sacred, whatever, like leagues beyond sacred. And he's trained up. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Apparently, it's like the return of some kind of like wolf god or something. But anyway, at the beginning, those three beings were like, oh, these ants are so whatever. I mean, it's I feel like that's common. Bugs, insects, things that are insignificant. I actually just saw it was a post, I think it was a comment that was like a reel about some stuff. And the comment was like somebody was like, why would it was about like aliens. So I was scrolling through Instagram, someone made a video. They were like, yeah, apparently China had sent out a text or a message to its people saying like if you're contacted by aliens, don't respond and inform the UN or whatever. And somebody in the comments was like, why would aliens be doing whatever now? And then someone else was like, imagine if you're like looking at ants and, they're just doing their thing. And, you're just like, oh, it's ants being ants. And then imagine if one of them like pulled out a gun. Like, wouldn't you be interested or intrigued or want to see what's going on? Anyway. I feel like I was already, as soon as we entered this good versus evil, whatever territory. Not as soon, because at first I was like, what is this? Let me follow the thread. After reading those that Arnim Zola specifically, I was like, okay, this is really turning into one of those. And because the robot is neutral, it's almost like there are larger forces at play for sure, but it's settled in the everyday. It's settled in the day to day. Like we live it out and we play it out type energy. So it's almost like it's like, in a way, it doesn't matter how powerful a removed force is if they don't have anybody to do their bidding or to carry out their will, right? Like a leader of whatever is only as powerful as their subjects or as their cohort or as their whatever are obedient, right? People with a lot of power, especially like these days, with what power typically looks like, unless you're talking about like, I don't know, some mafia mob type whatever, where they're still like squaring up or like marksmen shooting people. You know what I mean? If it's like a scale of like actual power, then like, yeah, that's different. But even then, with numbers, you can turn a tide. Um, but like when it comes to like more abstract power, like if it was like a nation or whatever, they're only as powerful as their military is loyal, because their power acts through other people. It's the ants that actually do the whatever. It's the pieces on the board that actually make those moves. Imagine you sit down to play chess and you don't have any pieces. You can play using your imagination, but you know, if you got a king and all of your other pieces are imaginary and you're playing against someone that has real pieces, your imaginary pieces aren't going to capture real pieces. You know what I mean? And of course, like we did start with the beach and the whatever, like this land and sea, conscious, subconscious, the tangible, physical, and the energetic, subtle. Like there are plays there, but again, a lot of things sort of have to be played out physically. There are things that energetically you could influence that are a lot harder to influence physically. Sure, but that's the vibe. PIM technologies being neutral, it's like it's all vessels that, or people that do whatever, right? And yes, there are like larger energies at play, but in the 3D, in the real world, it's people that do stuff. And then on the other side is the exalted sunborn with no flavor text, but an ability to fly. It has lifelink. It's an angel wizard, and it has warp. And again, with this exalted sunborn, because the robot is neutral, the cards that come out with it are neutral. So this isn't like angels versus the PIM laboratory evil scientists, kind of sort of in the way that it came out originally. It's like the exalted sunborn are these exalted energies, like the entities behind the scenes or at the top of the pyramid or whatever. And the illusion to the ants is the people that do their bidding. These are the entities, these are the individuals. You're like, what is this? Like, it's not so like wild or crazy. Cause I'm like, this, I feel like it's so quickly veered into territory that's like not new or whatever. Also, it's like, what do we do with this? Maybe because I feel like this actually sort of fits the theme of the classroom, though. I feel like this actually fits the theme of like the assignment isn't necessarily the test, or that energy of like we're not necessarily being tested for correctness. There's something else that we're being tested for. Now, because I am who I am, and because I'm inclined towards what I'm inclined towards, I would say that there's this. Actually, no, because it was the beach, and what was the other card? The vineyards, growth and cultivation, and it was like there's this. The beach is sort of like the bridge between these two different things, but there's something that you like build on the bridge. It's like there's a spire on the bridge, and it comes out of the bridge. It brings it into another dimension, right? If we have length and width, it introduces an element of height and depth. And there is a scenario, because I am who I am and it's low hanging fruit for me, I guess. I'll just, before I flip anything else, I'll just say the low hanging fruit for me. If like this is the assignment, then one of the tests could be to not necessarily align with either. Right? The exalted sunborn are the energies at large, or the entities at large that are playing this game. The ants are us, the people who like live it out. And we live it out for like different reasons. There are some people who like venerate and worship like money and fame and success. And then there are people who like worship and venerate like other things. And they all kind of sort of become through vessels through which that kind of sort of like plays out. Also, there are darker things than money, fame, and success. And there are lighter things than those other things. It's like a whole spectrum and a whole gamut, but it's like there's like you can take yourself off of the board. And I feel like even in a lot of ways, maybe I'll just leave it where it is. I'll just let it rest. Because I don't even know if it's necessarily going to go there. But that's what, again, because I am me, that's what my mind immediately sort of goes to. Because it's almost like the reason why I guess I feel validated in that potential conclusion is like I don't feel like we were created to play that out. Like I don't necessarily read that as like the intention behind our creation. You can say it's a result of the power dynamics and disparities, like spiritual power of an individual person versus like angelic forces or demonic forces or whatever. You could say it's like our nature, the things that we desire, that again causes us to align with some things more than others. But it's like when it comes to what we were created for, we weren't created as puppets to be used or pieces through which a game can be played out. That's what I'm like, yeah, it's like neither. Uh, maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Okay, cool. Where do we start? Let's start with the Moloid and the pest. With the Moloid, we have the Ark of Hunger. Few relics survive the turmoil of the Blood Age. Those that did are powerful, dangerous, or both. So you have this powerful and dangerous Ark of Hunger, literally on the side of the Moloid, which is the ant that Angel of Deception energy plays through. Hunger, starvation. It's like putting us in a survival mode. And when we're in survival mode, we're more likely to do things that we wouldn't necessarily do otherwise. It takes advantage of our need to survive, our drive to survive, our survival instincts, or whatever. On the other side, we have Locust Spray. A suit of armor is only as good as it seems. Vanity lost, a night's folly. I showed the other card, right? So we have Locust Spray, A Knight's Folly, Vanity Lost, and the Arc of Hunger. I feel like Vanity Lost, like there's the one side that's survival with the Arc of Hunger, and then there's the other side that's like the ego with the Vanity Lost, the Knight's Folly. And even then, it still plays on that energy of like where we're vulnerable. A suit of armor is only as good as it seems. And this is a non tangible energy. Or it's an energy that has like that is very, very extremely well versed in non tangible means. So what good is a suit of armor against the intangible? Unless it's like enchanted armor. But even still, they're like seams in the armor and the wards and the whatever, there are like spaces and gaps, right? Now, for the person in the armor, they feel invincible. But for the one taking advantage or for the one with the means to get between the seams, they're as vulnerable as anybody else. Again, that feels like it kind of plays into the whole like even when we think we're doing good, sometimes we're still not. Not really. Or it's like, yes, it's true that the good that we do offsets potential like bad or evil, but it feels like the opposite is true. It's like almost like we can convince ourselves that we're doing good enough so that we don't do better, or so that we don't wise up to something, or so that we don't like open our eyes like a little bit more to see the whole thing in play. You know what I mean? On the side of the past, we have Mech and Shieldmate. Do not mistake a preference for peace for an inability to fight. Uh, Ivan, the pinnacle enemy. Do not mistake a preference for peace for an inability to fight. Again, that plays into the truth that sometimes we have to be active. We can't just be passive. I feel like a lot of times we're almost conditioned and we believe that to like be to champion peace is to champion like non-action or uh the only word that's coming to mind is ignorance. And yes, there is a certain amount of like willful ignorance. It's kind of that whole like, you know, just turn off the news, isolate yourself from the real world, don't pay attention to anything, and in your dreamy, isolated, deluded, whatever, the world is perfect and at peace and there's nothing wrong that's happening. Which I guess it's great for the self, but it doesn't do necessarily anything for the rest of the world. Just because you're not watching it doesn't mean it's not happening. And just because you tune out doesn't mean that it stopped. And if something proliferates in the dark and ignorance, it's like it's only a matter of time until it reaches our door. If it conquers everything else, then the only places left to conquer will be the few that stand. And it's almost like if those few places were like strong enough or sturdy enough, not that they would have done something, but it's like, oh, anyway. Also, too, though, with that whole like, there's the assignment and then there's the test. While, of course, I personally believe that there is truth and merit to that, also at the same time, it perpetuates the battle and it perpetuates the cycle, right? again, it's like it takes two to tango. Like you're still kind of dancing. You know what I mean? Which is very whatever territory. And so again, like it plays into that whole like non-action whatever, but it still doesn't necessarily. And honestly, that is kind of the knight's folly on the side of this angel of deception, because that is also like another tactic, especially if there are people that are capable. If you can convince the people that are the most capable to not do anything, it's almost like no matter how capable they are, things can get to the point where they can't do anything. Right? It's like if someone's a doctor and there's like an ailment or a malady that someone is suffering, they're like, oh, we'll keep an eye on it and we'll watch it. We'll keep an eye on it and we'll watch it. Symptoms are worsening. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll just like keep monitoring. We'll watch it. It's like eventually it's gonna get to a point where medicine can't do anything because all that was done was monitoring and observation. Now it's full blown whatever, and there's no medical equipment, technology, or expertise to save someone whose body is like 99% rotted. If you amputate 99% of a person, I guess it depends on the 1% that you save, maybe. And again, that's another sort of layer to this deception too. It can be, take it as it resonates. If it resonates, but again, like if you render the most capable inactive and inert, you pretty much don't have anything to worry about. And of course, it's sold in a way where they feel like they're helping out or they feel like they're doing something to like move things in a positive direction or in a different direction. It's like, no. If you want to, if there's starvation and you want to move things in a positive direction, you feed people. You don't ignore them until people starve to death. And then the only people that are left alive are the ones that could afford to eat while there's mass starvation. And then, of course, it's like, yeah, when you get to that point where all of the people without means have starved to death, there are no longer no starving people because they all died. And so, technically, does it deliver on its promise? Yeah. Starvation is eliminated. Some people aim for well, let them starve to death and then everybody else, we'll be fine. But some people like genuinely want to like solve the starvation problem, and they're convinced that that's the solution. And then when it plays out and they find out, oh, like when they come out of their bunkers or whatever, and they're like, oh, like the entire population starved to death. Like when I heard that this was the solution to ending starvation, I didn't imagine that it would be because everybody else died. And there's enough movies and books and novels and TV shows, and there's enough media where we see that like play out. And it's like, I wish to never be hungry. Well, when you're dead, you're not hungry. So, you know what I mean? Type energy. So anyway, that's one side of this. I feel like there's, again, with that whole piece that started before we got into this, even if it does combat it, it's still like, anyway, let's just keep going. On the other side, we have the melancholic poet. We celebrate our sadness because it reminds us of the true value of being alive. Now, it's interesting that, I mean, we have a full art, but on the side of the moloid, we have no holographic cards. On the side of the past, we have 2 holographic cards. Shiny, shiny. Ooh. We got the Melancholic Poet and the Meccan Shieldmate, MP and MS. We celebrate our sadness because it reminds us of the true value of being alive. I feel like maybe this is the point. Let the story unfold. I feel like I'm not necessarily a great neutral storyteller. Not necessarily. Again, but after that sort of like this isn't what we were created for, with the feeling that this isn't what we're created for, even on the side of like, see, but I feel like that's almost like the catch-22 or whatever. Because even if we're not created to just be endlessly engulfed in this like war against good and evil or whatever, also at the same time, it doesn't necessarily serve to not do anything. And maybe this ties back into that soul journeying and peregrination. Like the soul journeying part of this is like yes, there's more to our existence, but also like at the same time we can't ignore what's happening. So it's not necessarily the goal to be a non-participating piece of furniture. But at the same time, like there's the peregrination that's like this, we were created for more than just this. How about that? But it's like just because we were created for more than this or more than just this, it doesn't mean just this. What? Sorry. Even though we were created for more than just this, it doesn't mean that like we shouldn't be involved, get involved, be like, it doesn't mean that we should remove ourselves necessarily. Who am I? The melancholic poet. Our sadness, our grief, our loss, it reminds us of what it is to be alive. Like, yeah, sure. I feel like I'm just, after that realization, let the story unfold. Okay. Maybe because on the side of the moloid, we had the Vanity Lost, Night's Folly. And then we had the Arc of Hunger. Arc of Hunger played on survival instincts. Vanity Lost almost plays on desire. Now over here on the side of the pest, it's like you have the people that do stuff with the Mechan Shieldmate. Do not mistake a preference for peace for an inability to fight. And then you also have like the melancholic poet that just like not wallows in their misery, but that takes a very, it's like it feels a lot, it notices a lot, but it doesn't necessarily do anything. What the I just got to let the story unfold. Let the story unfold. Okay. Cool. All right. I feel like this rehearsed debater with the history buff in reverse is a very interesting, like how can we learn from a history that we're not even, or it's like in that saying, those who don't learn from their history are doomed to repeat it. It's like, how can we not repeat history that we can't even learn fully, especially on this side? Excuse me. Okay. I actually saw a video that was interesting. It's fine. You see that? Where is it? Here. It's so thin. It's so thin. It's fine. I just like saw it. The one that's like barely hold on to me. There it is. It's almost like a whisper, but it's still there. When I do this, it's like one of the longest ones. So it's like, anyway, it's fine. Let me stop. Cool. We actually have the Campus Composer. The Campus Composer has no flavor text. It's a merfolk bard, aqueous aria, where you can create a 3/3 blue, red, and blue, a 3/3 blue and red elemental flying token creature. I feel like this Campus Composer, she's shiny. But this Campus Composer, next to like the Rehearsed Debater, History Buff in reverse, like the Composer next to this, Satarial Energy in reverse. Or not, no. Next to this Satarial Energy is like, okay. But it's like, that's also like the power of song to like move us. But like, it's propaganda done in a way to like deceive us. On the other side of this Angel of Deception energy, we have the Kree Commandos. The Kree Empire has existed for millennia. With each world it conquers, it finds new ways to fight. Apparently, this time their warfare of choice is music, is to move us by our emotions or whatever. Again, we have that energy of like they've been around for millennia, next to this energy of like the angel of deception that faked their own death so that they'd be the only angel on this side of the veil after it went down. It clarifies itself, it validates and reinforces itself. Is there anything more to say? Also, the Kree commanders, I'm pretty sure they're like shapeshifters or something. Again, on the other side, let's just keep going. On the side of the fractal, we have the Starfighter pilot. Bright Star. 1 to flight com. Scopes are clear. The stars are yours. I showed you the other card, right? Excuse me. Interesting how you have these like Kree commanders that go from world to world, and then you have this intergalactic starfighter pilot. Bright Star 1 to flight com. Scopes are clear. The stars are yours. Again, it almost feels like that plays into that energy of like battles that are waged across worlds, waged across time. You know what I mean? Excuse me, but with the flight comms clear, I almost felt like with like the way I was originally going to read this was very like almost like playing into it in a way. almost like there are people that, like, for selfish reasons do this or do that, and you are this pest who is good and you're whatever. Was that necessary? Not necessarily. But again, after that, I'm like, we were created for more than this. Like, this is and again, it's like, we can't necessarily ignore what's happening in the world. That's not necessarily the solution. It's just like, you know what I mean? I'm curious what's on the other side of this fractal. The inkling. The inkling bird. It's interesting that the inkling is on the other side of this fractal, because it's like when you have an inkling or a notion, it's almost like that, like intuition, discernment, the connection, the bridge between the fractal and the pest. And on the other side of the pest is another fractal. But anyway, with that energy of like flight comms clear, again, the spiritual realm has surged to the top of the deck. I'm not surprised that the skies are clear, because the spiritual realm is literally right here, right under the gas station. Imagine you go to a nondescript gas station. They literally dot the planet. If you have automobiles, you got gas stations more often than not. And there's automobiles and gas stations all over the planet. Random gas station right under it, right behind it, the spiritual realm. I mean, what if God was one of us? Wouldn't it be somewhere inconspicuous and not necessarily a monument to whatever? Yes and no. Yes, because of course, but also no, because of course not. There are like sacred holy sites that are sacred and holy, obviously, but then there are also places that like you wouldn't necessarily expect. But like the sacred and holy is everywhere. It could be like concentrated in a few places, but it's everywhere. So it could be anywhere. Anyway, on the other side of the fractal, we have the masterful flourish. Hold your applause. I am not yet finished. Color me goops. Color me gags. In a lot of ways, it makes sense for what the energy has been. But also at the same time, and I feel like that I am not yet finished means that there is an intention to finish it. Who am I? But some dude, but some guy, some rando. And what is this but Magic the Gathering playing cards? The reason why I feel like this makes sense, especially on that second interpretation, because there were two interpretations, right? There was the one that plays out through the Angel of the Mists, who caught on to the deception and who also remained, but in an obscure way, so as not to be discovered. Maybe between like the mists and deception, well, however you want to put it, it's like deception kind of like plays a little heavier, or is more capable of, like, if there's only two forces, a force related to mists and a force related to deception, the force related to deception could easily get a lot more ants than the force related to the mists. So it's almost like if something was done prematurely, it'd be wiped out type of energy, right? But in that second one of like force or forces on the other side of the veil have caught on to the deception and are now like doing something about it, again, it's like within that framework, the angel of deception had to come up with this whole scheme to remove everyone else to be in the position of power that it is now in. So if you start to bring more and more of everyone else back into the equation, it'll like completely flip the whatever, because it's only as powerful as it is now because of everything else that is at a remove, which again kind of sort of plays into that whole, like, if you can get the most powerful, the most competent pieces off of the board and not engage, you have no opposition on the side of like a tactic of the angel of deception, right? Anyway, first I was like, oh, what is this? It's just like it perpetually plays out. There's no end to it. And then this card said, hold your applause. I'm not finished. And I'm like, oh, the more that we were created for, maybe we'll actually get to find out. You know? It's also interesting though, how the only, like, when it came to the ants on the side of the fractal are shiny. Oops. The ants are shiny, but the fractal is not shiny. When it comes to the rehearsed debater, one of its cards is shiny, and it's the one that arguably moves people the most. Also, I feel like it's interesting that we're talking about that this is interpreted through the angelarium, and also you have this campus composer, when Lucifer was associated with like not only like light being the light bringer, but also music. Lucifer being related to double energy, the campus composer being on the side of deceit. Maybe that's just one of those fun Easter eggs, or not so fun Easter eggs. One of those points of synchronicity. The only shiny one is here, but when it comes to the ants, like you have a full art, which is I think the only full art on the table, but you don't have any shiny ants over here. Which is, I feel like, again, that's like it plays into the reason why the most capable, the most competent, the most likely to change a situation, you convince them to do nothing but be melancholy, to fall into the melancholy of everything rather than doing anything to change it. All of the shiny ants are on the side that deception removed from the table. I mean, eventually things are going to get to the point. Again, kind of like with these two, things are going to get to the point, or things have gotten to the point where you can't just be lost in melancholy anymore, where it's like, okay, you have taken advantage of my preference for peace. I now realize, hopefully, maybe, wink, wink, I now realize that melancholic poetic waxing isn't going to result in the peace that I've been feeling. So now, regrettably, I must act, and you are not ready. Anyway, hold your applause. I'm not finished yet. But wait, there's more. And I feel like I feel like I was in London when this happened. Actually, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I may have erased the note. I might be able to tell you exactly when it was. Because I used pinup. Hmm? I feel like hey, they didn't change the app, y'all. Or maybe they haven't. I usually have my phone open when I access this app, so maybe it just looks different in the half whatever mode. Okay, now let's try this again. I might still have yeah, there we go. I had just never used it that way before. Are these the only two drafts I have? I only have two drafts. Isn't that crazy? So I don't think I have it actually. Yeah. I know I drew a thing. There was an energy that it came out and it was like different levels of involvement. Like there's this level where like things are playing out. There's this level where we can like read the movements of things to know how things are playing out. It's almost like a game of Plinko. If Plinko is foreign or unfamiliar, imagine tubes. There are tubes. You have like balls up here, and there are these tubes that like twist and do whatever, and then they fall out in buckets, right? At the point of the buckets at the bottom, like we're kind of living in the moment. We're doing our best as things kind of sort of come up. At the point above that, when you're able to see into the tubes, like you know which buckets the balls are going to fall into because you can see them in motion. But at the level above that, it's like you are actually like more actively engaged in like placing the balls in the tubes that precedes the where they are going to go, knowing the pathways that precedes the how it plays out. I thought about this recently. I feel like there was a reason why that energy kind of sort of came up, and I feel like yeah, that's fine. I mean, again, there are so many cards already on the table. I don't necessarily feel like this has a direction. There isn't a place for involvement, I guess, beyond like being an ant and either being on the side of ego and survival or operating from something different. And then in that something different, it's almost like I want to say that the melancholic poet and the Mekon shield bearer or whatever are so almost like completely whatever that it's like it can be easy to get into the doing of things with a shield bearer, but to be separated from like the cause, I guess. And it can be really easy to like be absorbed by the cause but not do anything. And maybe it's because sometimes like when we get so actively engaged in something, we can kind of like lose sight how easy it can be to lose sight of the bigger picture when we're like dealing with the details. But we can't be so bigger picture focused that we don't like get down into the weeds and get our own hands dirty to like build the foundations and to tend the garden to have a harvest to like reap. If that makes sense. Sometimes we can be so big picture that we can kind of neglect the things that have to happen every day in order for like those things to like work. Right? It's like if you're talking about an organization, right? You can have these like metrics and these big picture ideals, but it's like on the smallest scale or on smaller scales, if you're not treating your employees right, or if the environment isn't suitable for whatever, then like those metrics won't be met and those visions will never come to life because that's the level where it's built. That's the level where it actually happens. Like you got to have somebody to do it. You can have a vision for a mural on a wall, but someone has to paint it. So you might have to find someone that has the artistic ability to actively bring that vision to life. And also, you might have to compensate somebody. The person with the ability may not do it for free. Or even if it's not like a monetary compensation, maybe there's like something, like it's an exchange. Like it, like there's work that goes behind visions coming to life. They don't just manifest out of the blue someday. And yeah, that whole looking at the pipes kind of sort of plays into the understanding. Oh, the reason why I brought that up is because it seems like, or feels like, it seems like there can be an alignment of like a confluence of energies, maybe. Like things, it's not coincidences, it's like coincidences. Like things coincide. Like this is happening at the same time, this is happening at the same time, this other thing is happening. And they're not all necessarily interconnected, like directly connected to one another, but they all are happening at the same time. They all coincide. So it's not like coincidence, but it is coincidence, or can be coincidence. Like if it has rained a lot, then there are multiple things that can happen because it's raining. And the rain is the one thing that like everything is connected to, like the fact that it rained, but they're not like connected to each other. And it rains in the sky, not like down here at the ground level where things like pop up. I don't know if this like if I'm communicating this in a way that I'm like trying to. But anyway, that's why that energy came up recently, because it was like I feel like certain things are coinciding, but they're not necessarily whatever. But I guess if you say like, oh, it's gonna rain, then like I don't really know how. I don't know if I have a metaphor to necessarily describe it beyond like they're not completely removed from each other, but they're not necessarily directly interlinked. And it's like you can draw a correlation between them, but what is it like? I guess like if we think about the movements of the planets, maybe they all move around the sun. See, I feel like using the rain or taking the sun into account makes it harder to communicate because that's something that we can like correlate it to. It's like it feels like the actual application of the thing. Like we don't know how the water cycle works to know about the rain that's happening up in the sky atmospherically. Like we don't know that like all of the planets are revolving around the sun instead of it just being like these are the movements of these things through space. It's like, well, yeah, it's all revolving around. You know what I mean? It's like you can draw certain conclusions and it's not necessarily incorrect, but because of the size and scale and scope of our world and our ability to really observe and tap into it, it looks like certain things are like more connected than they may be, but they're not entirely like disconnected. You know what I mean? Like I can't think of anything. Like flowers, maybe. See, no, it's fine. It's fine. It wasn't necessarily relevant. Anyway, Interesting. So what do we have up here again? Arnim Zola and Essence Scatter. Now, I feel like we've also gotten to the heart of the Proctor's Gamble. I feel like the Proctor's Gamble sits as that question mark of whether or not we will realize or tap into the purpose of our, like, the intention behind our creation beyond how things are playing out here. I feel like because Essence Scatter is here, the gamble is that we will. And maybe my ego is just like, maybe I'm fooling myself or whatever. But it feels different than how we approach. It feels different than how I feel like it feels different than my observation of how we typically approach like religion and spirituality. I guess like not entirely. Maybe that plays into the peregrination and sojourning because it's peregrination and sojourning. It feels like we kind of get caught up in the sojourning of like the battle that's taken place, like being ants fighting other ants or whatever. Or we get like entirely absorbed in the peregrination of like the things that are removed, these entities and energies. But because we are both flesh and bone and spirit and soul, we kind of, I don't want to say have to do both. I don't want to say we kind of got to do both. I'm not going to say it. But it feels like we kind of get caught up in one or the other. And it's like to get caught up in the peregrination allows for anything and everything to happen on earth. But to get caught up in the sojourning is to almost inadvertently neglect the more that we were created for. But since we're humans living on earth, it's like we can't ignore the earth because hello. You know what I mean? And to be a human that will eventually leave this earth, like on the side of peregrination, it's like kind of like a leaving with regrets type energy. Like, oh, well, like we could have done this and we could have done that. And the whole not nirvana of it all. It's like it's fine. You'll get another chance. You'll incarnate again, and then, or like again, if we take it down here, if we don't learn our lesson, we'll just repeat, situations until we do. If we don't learn from our history, we'll just keep reliving it until the end, or until we do. There's no water left in here. Also, it feels like I'm not sweating as much. Cool. I feel like there kind of is a big question of what happens after this, after whatever this is finished. But also, it does remind me of the Temperance card that we saw in the Tarot Apocalypsis, and of the, was it the Eight of Wands, some other card, the Hierophant, the Empress, and the Emperor, which sort of like when we reach internal feminine, masculine, light, dark, whatever balance state, that's when this third element can be like introduced into the solution. Because if these two things aren't balanced, then it brings instability to the whole thing, and then that's when you get like Not necessarily the Powerpuff Girls, but you get a mess. And maybe a lot of this, you get more of this mess. Yeah, cool. Anyway. Did I look at the bottom of the deck over here? I'm sure I had to, right? No, I didn't. Drill too deep. The rapacious, I guess. The rapacious appetite that ended their world became the only means by which the Cav could lift their civilization from it. Well, I guess we could have kept not looking at that. Drill too deep at the bottom of the Magic the Gathering card deck. There you go. I feel like you can break that word down and pretty much assume what it means. I'm not going to. Definition. It's an adjective that means extremely greedy or having a fierce desire to grab wealth, power, or possessions, often using unfair methods or force. Maybe something is happening to stop us from drilling too deep. And that something is happening with these fractals. Honestly, also the fact that it's fractals, I'm kind of like loving because it's nondescript. Why do I love that it's nondescript? Because it almost feels like to overly attach an identity or to overly attach a specific branch or way of thinking would be to become too antsy about it. That's why I like that it's like nondescript. Maybe also it's not just one. Again, there are like gas stations all over the world. There are restaurants all over the world. Do street vendors count as restaurants? Some of them, yeah. Have you ever had a quality experience? And you're like, oh my gosh. And this is on the street? You can have a whole, I'd pay. I guess like you're still paying for it. I'd pay to sit down and eat this. I don't know. I'd pay to be in an environment where I'm not on the street and eat this. I mean, it's fun. Cool. All right. I feel like that would play into the Knight's Folly if there were, and again, like Chazakiel, the Angel of the Mist was like the one that I could like reach for. Reaching for the mist, lol, was the one that I could reach for within the pantheon of the Angelarium. But Sotariel, Angel of Deception, there are like plenty of deceptive forces. It ain't got to be Sotariel. Deception comes in many flavors. Some of them dress up as sacred and holy, and some of them are revered as such. And I feel like, again, that plays into the ego of the Knight's Folly. Like, I thought I was being chivalrous and fighting for whatever by rampaging, murdering, pillaging, playing into my rapacious appetite. And it's like, you're human, so I believe that, but like, really? You thought by killing all of the people that are hungry that's like, yeah, I guess technically you ended starvation, but like you could have just like cultivated the land. Like there were a million other things that you could have done besides like decimating entire populations of people. But anyway, let's take ourselves out of the story for a second. This is it. Cool. Definitely didn't expect this. Definitely thought this was going to go somewhere else, but that's fine. I mean, hey, We got, first of all, with the fractal, we have the Cree. Ooh, oh, girl, how did that happen? Ooh, get that out of here. I looked at the star pilot over here too. My eye kept being drawn to the star pilot. You don't belong here. As I'm literally talking about how sometimes deception wears robes that are holy and deception is venerated. And it's like, girl, the math over here ain't mathing. First of all, if the whole thing is supposed to be about love, like, where's the love? Yes, you don't belong here. The Kree commander had infiltrated or tried to. Maybe some of the Kree commanders are like, they're jumping ship. They're like, yeah, yeah. They also fell into the deception. They were hopping from world to world to world, thinking something like they fell prey to a deception like worlds and millennia and eons ago. And maybe some of their eyes are being opened, and they're like, yeah, we're out of here. Anyway. With the Starfighter pilot, Bright Star 1 to Flightcom, scopes are clear, the stars are yours. Next to the hold your applause, I am not yet finished. The way is being made, the stars are yours, the path is clear, and I'm about to end it. I was like, okay. Cool, my bad. I don't know. Again, we can make this mundane, right? Like, let's say that there is like a CEO or a person who is like properly invested in the mission of a company, and the board or the people at the top are so greedy that they will sacrifice longevity for quick short-term profit. And this is something being brought to their awareness. We can make it even more mundane. This could be a realization that someone has, that someone that they think operates in their best interest really doesn't. Right? Maybe it's been a long game. Or maybe because of some deception that we faced in the past, it makes us more susceptible to the same deception in the present. But after that realization, we almost become immune as we move into the future. Like, this will never work on me again. Now that I see, now that my eyes are open. And so the world, like the finishing of whatever, is like someone now moves into cycles where they find people that are like truly supportive and that play with them, and they enter environments where they're not critiqued and criticized and demeaned into not doing whatever, but they're celebrated. Like, their genius is acknowledged and celebrated rather than their genius being acknowledged and envy or whatever someone has going on within themselves, causing them to do whatever in whatever kind of way, making them try to dim. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe I realized it really wasn't you this whole time. Again, we saw the entities and we saw the individuals. And it plays out on both scopes, right? Something like that can have impacts in arenas and ways in our lives, areas and aspects that we can't even necessarily fathom or imagine, because we've lived the way that we've lived or believed what we've believed, even about ourselves, for as long as we have. We put the cards all together and we shuffle them up. We put the hold up. Yeah, I did. Okay. We put the cards all together and we shuffle them up. Can I get a? I want to get these all back first. But the fact that the spiritual realm is at the top now, I'm not surprised because of how like things have been happening. Because of how the energy has been flowing, I'm not surprised. But still, like, just because I'm not surprised doesn't mean I ain't shook. Because it's one thing to like whatever, know, trust, believe, to feel the vibe of like, oh, so like things are really about to shift. And it's another thing for things to actually like shift. You know what I mean? You can know that in 20 years something is going to happen, but for it to finally be the day, it's like, whoa, you know what I mean? right. Final. I kind of want to get the Magic the Gathering card first before I get the Places Oracle. Final Magic the Gathering card. Clean flipper, clean fall, please. Oh, we got a flipper. This is a full art. It's the Thing, Ben Grimm. There's no flavor text for the Thing. The legendary human hero. I feel like if I recall, the Thing came out as kind of neutral. I mean, it came out as more neutral than some of the other energies. I'll say that. Not truly neutral. But it's giving me the energy of like plowing the earth. Maybe it's like this thing. I don't even know if that's it. She's giving me like this is a plow, this is the earth. The Thing has the strength to like break up. You know what that means? Like the Thing has the strength to till and cultivate soil that hasn't been tilled and cultivate for centuries, if not millennia. Like if you think of like deserts and like mountains, like that hard earth, not like sandy deserts, not like dunes, but like dry, cracked earth, like boulders and stuff like that. The Thing has the strength to move the plow through those, like it can plow bedrock. And it's also interesting because again, in the narrative thread of hunger and starvation, and wasn't that like a thing with Thanos or whatever? Something about the Thing can cultivate land in areas that we didn't think were possible. And to see the Thing in motion is to potentially realize that there are better ways or other ways to feed people. And that's the vibe that Ben is giving. Ben Grimm. Also interesting that his last name is Grimm. Also, that's a little bit of a synchronicity. I watched Ascendance of the Bookworm season 2 today, and she's someone who's reincarnated into another world who loves to read. What is it? Oh no, that's it. I love to read. Matilda. Anyway, she was like, I'm going to collect stories from the nobility and also from the commoners. Like, I'm going to gather these stories from all over the country and all over the world. She calls it Project Grimm, like the Grimm brothers, right? And so to see Ben Grimm here, especially when we had theater let the story play out, but with this whole like cultivating new lands stories that have yet to be told because other things are still unfolding. Like, okay, I see you. Hopefully not as grisly, of course. Bottom of the deck is the Visionary Stance. Choreography powers you. Choreography powers the spell, but improvisation shapes it. Visionaries dance. Choreography powers the spell, but improvisation shapes it. We have this visionary, and we have Ben tilling lands that have long been thought dead. He's got the strength to do it. Cool. In the last place, the final place, we have the park and the hot springs at the cut. Park, communal leisure, breath of fresh air. Hot springs, nature, spa, warmth, and rejuvenation. Warmth and rejuvenation. That is hilarious because on Ascendance of the Bookworm, they basically went to a hot spring. She was like, oh, it's like a hot spring. Everybody was like, what are you talking about? Because she's from another world. She's from a world where, people get in the hot springs for leisure. Apparently in that world, people are like, girl, what are you talking about? What are you doing? And then she's like, oh, the temperature of this water is amazing. And they're just like, we gotta go. Anyway, that's the second shout out to Ascendants of a Bookworm, apparently. Ooh. That was an interesting flip, but it flipped. I wouldn't necessarily say it wasn't dirty. It was a little mechanical. It was a little stiff. It was a stiff flip. We have the golf course, groomed landscape, quiet focus, and behind that is spiritual realm, dimensions of the divine, cosmic energy unveiled. So from the gas station to the golf course is a fun card. It actually flipped over. I know there are 18 holes on a full golf course, right? I think there are 18 holes on a full golf course. What do I know? I like putt-putt, but I'm not great at it. I mean, the last time I even played putt-putt was like, I feel like when I was maybe a teenager, literally years ago. Every now and then you get like a hole and a nice putt or whatever. You get a hole in one or maybe two or three, and it's like, whoa. And then the next hole is like a hole in 7 or 8 or 10 or 11, and it humbles you. It humbles me. Golf course and spiritual realm. Interesting. Quiet focus. With it being paired with a card of quiet focus. Like that's an interesting combination. It almost brings me back to that why now? Like why would aliens do whatever now? And someone's like, imagine that you're observing ants, and for a while they're just doing ant things, and then one day an ant pulls out a gun, and you're like, whoa. It's almost like it almost reads like or feels like there was a point where things were so contentious, it could have been easy to read it as like, well, that's just what ants do. Like ants are doing the things that they've always been doing. But it's almost like instead of the quiet focus being peace here, the quiet focus is like deception's plan is working a little too well. So instead of it being this chaotic back and forth cacophony, it's like you can see the choreography behind it. And it's like, this is too well choreographed. At first, it looked random or whatever, but when it's this choreographed, there's some kind of mastermind or there's something behind it. Almost like, imagine that, like, I don't know. It's like when you reach a breaking point with some things. Like there are good days and then there are bad days, but then it's like it gets to the point where there are significantly more bad days than good days, and it's like, okay, like we need to talk, we need to have a conversation, or I need to like get up and go, but it's like again, but like that's the quiet focus. It's almost like things are so whatever that it doesn't, like the good days don't distract from like how toxic an environment is or whatever. And so now like it's crystal clear. Maybe it's like, oh, like that goes beyond just people being people. That goes beyond just like ants being ants. Something is like particularly whatever. I don't know. Within the narrative framework. Bottom of the deck is the bakery. Pastry haven, fresh and sweet treats. Imagine like some kind of reparations or something. It's like, oh, like we didn't know that like Satario didn't really die. We didn't know that deception has been like running things this whole time. Not only are we going to clean up our mess and make them like, not only are we going to clean up our mess and like take care of this, but we're also going to make amends for this oversight. It's like, in this economy, I'll take it. You know what I mean? Someone's offering reparations. You don't say no. I mean, I guess you could, but it's like, it's very much like for all of the trouble that you've been through, the best is double just for you. I started watching this new show. There's like this new genre of anime that I've been watching, and I feel like I may have gotten to the point where I kind of got to stop or I got to chill because my blood, it's like my blood is boiling too often, too much, you know? But anyway, I was watching it, and there were two sisters, the older sister and the younger. It's the oldest, right? There are two sisters, and this is like very like halfway through the first episode, maybe. So it's not really spoilery. There are two sisters, an older sister and a younger sister. The younger sister is the favored. Her parents believe that she is going to catch a man someday, and she does. The older sister is ignored. She's like literally laying in her bed as a child, sick, praying, hoping, and wishing that her parents will come in and care for her, and they don't. It's one of those types of shows. And then she finds a man who is more powerful and more well off than the man that her younger sister found. And she finds the man, her man, after her younger sister has her man like mess her up. And he's like, who did this to you? What happened? Anyway, it was one of those like, I wonder if sometimes like things are kind of like banked or delayed. You know what I mean? Like if we're, oh girl, I don't want to use that language. I don't, it doesn't necessarily personally reflect how I feel. How about that? It doesn't reflect how I feel. But this was like the where my brain went as I'm like watching yet another show where people do people dirty, and it's not until someone else recognizes their talent, or it's not until they come into their own strength or whatever, that all of a sudden they're like, oh, like those years of like bullying and mistreatment and neglect, and like we didn't mean any of it. Like, come home, we're your family. And it's like, okay, well, we've been family this whole time. And my experience of family up until now has not been whatever. So anyway, that's one of those. It was like, I wonder if like we have a certain amount of like blessings that we are owed or due, if there's a certain amount of blessing that we're due in life. And so if we miss out in the beginning, well, that's just like even more that we'll get in the end, or at some point in the future, some point in the present, some point in the now. And it's like it's so much that it more than makes up for what we lost, but we at that point still have to carry like the emotional baggage of what we had gone through, which may lead us to not being able to accept whatever or blah blah blah. Go to therapy, get a therapist, find someone that you can trust and hopefully truly trust to like break things down with. But yeah, it was like, again, I don't necessarily personally believe that, but it was like one of those like, what if it is banked and stored? And because you've been missing out, you're due like a massive payment. The bakery, that sweet treat, like the amends that are made, right? And I like that, making amends, because it's like amending a constitution or something, right? Like within this narrative framework, at the very least, and I call it a narrative framework because who am I? Within this real Karukian narrative framework of the veil, this was a twist. This was a plot twist. I don't think this plot twist ever really came out before. Not necessarily. I wonder if, like, I wish I had cataloged it because I want to go back and I wish I could watch an old reading and see if, like, there were signs that it was a deception. You know what I mean? Anyway, it's like when the veil fell, it fell with certain conditions because of the impression that the angel of deception had left. And so, like, making amends may also be amending and redrawing sort of like those boundaries and barriers. And again, I feel like that plays into like we were created for more than just the struggle or the battle that we're going through or dealing with or that we find ourselves amidst. And in a way, maybe we were left to our own devices or had to be more self-reliant or whatever because of whatever. And it will be maybe amended. I don't know. This was what it was. It was, entertaining if nothing else. I feel like entertaining isn't necessarily a word that I would use, but ultimately at the end, it didn't play out too bad. So yeah, sure. It was a ride for sure. I'll say that. Yeah, I hope y'all have an amazing whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path journey, what you find. And I did look at that title. What was it? It was like Resolution for the Resolute. I think it was like Liberation for the Unbound and Resolution for the Resolute, which was 6 weeks and a day ago. Actually, because it was 6 weeks from that day, but I think that day was like at night. I feel like it should have been 6 weeks, not including that day. So it means that yesterday, the 22nd, was actually the close of that. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 takes us to the 10th. No, 8, 9, the 24th. 6 plus 9 equals 15. So August 24th. Do I know somebody born on the? I think my ex roomie is born on the 26th or the 29th. Scorpio season. Around the beginning of Scorpio season. Cool. Yeah. Take it as it resonates. If it resonates, if it don't resonate, don't take it. I hope y'all have been amazing whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path journey and where you find. And until next time, wouldn't it be like hilarious if one of these wasn't empty? Until next time, keep on keeping on. Use your intuition, discernment, and yeah. I kind of want to get like a flavor of something as like a little sweet treat, the cherry on the top of this from something else, but I don't necessarily know what deck I would go for. If I had to go for a deck, I guess I could go for the Dreams of Gaia. But I don't know. I don't know if there's anything that I have that would necessarily like add to this and not necessarily perpetuate. I'm gonna use the Mystical Shaman Oracle cards. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm just like folding all of these over. Don't mind me. Why? No reason. I just wanna fold. I just wanna fold like I'm folding the tops. I could get a Whispers of Lord Ganesha. The Tarot Nefertari, what? I feel like the Tarot Nefertari is a deck that I have that I would like love to use more. I guess like with the peregrination and the soul journeying, like we can do the peregrination, but if like again, if the state of the earth is complete trash, then like it's almost like what would be the point? No, but what would we have? What would we inherit? What would our experience be within this incarnation, especially? Right? Like you can go like, oh, that's not my business, or like, oh, it'll work itself out, blah blah blah, whatever. It's not for me to be involved, but it's like if things were to play out in a certain type of way and fashion, then what would be left? Outside of the whole, like eventually it'll come for you, like what would be left? To inherit a kingdom of ash and dust? you know? I feel like another thing that's kind of sort of been coming up, or that's been on my mind lately a lot, is like a concept of balance that I guess could be something like karma. Of like, even if we were to take the morality, even if we were to strip things of morality, there's still a concept of balance and like cause and effect. You know what I mean? Okay. Why does it sound like there's like a garbage truck or something? A semi going down the street at 3:22 a.m. Actually, I think there is a driver. Because I feel like I've seen a semi parked on the street before. I feel like it's been a while though. Beloved, the beloved and the mystical shaman. The beloved mystical shaman. Well, I don't think I've ever seen that combination before. Oh, okay, that immediately just like fell onto the table. And it's the Jaguar, number 28. I feel like in this case, being like this dark stalking cat, it is kind of like that angel of the mist or that fractal energy that's just been like watching, waiting, observing, and the tree of life. Is that the moon? Is that supposed to be the moon? I'm looking at it and it looks a little cratery. The embodiment of like the spiritual realm coming forward. Are these buildings? Is this like a giant jaguar? I don't know if this is the right side or not. No, here we go. I'm like, there we go. I feel like that's a building. Like some kind of ancient ruin or something. Anyway, with the tree of life at the bottom of the deck, this was reading like a fruit of the tree of life that the jaguar is near. I don't know if like the jaguar is going to eat the fruit and then like become a were jaguar, anthropomorphized, whatever type deal, or if the jaguar is presenting the fruit that looks like the moon when we had the card of the bedroom of like dreams and comfy space or whatever, like the dreams in that. And it was like the stories that unfold in dreams or whatever. Or the story of your dreams unfolding. Love that. Bury that. Cool. All right. There's the cherry on top. Literally the cherry on top. And it's being presented by the Jaguar of all things. So, yeah. Use your intuition and discernment, of course, as always. But maybe don't believe the stories that they tell about the jaguar so that when it presents the fruit, you don't reject it out of what you've heard or been convinced to believe. Anyway, this was whatever this was. And the next one will be whatever the next one is going to be. That's kind of the nature of things here.